Just leave everything on.
Yeah.
Because I haven't let anybody in the ring yet.
Got it.
So that's on.
This is the
I'm
next.
thinking mine on the right one.
Got it. Okay. All good. Just want to make sure we're all good.
Didn't need another problem.
Yeah, I just texted Mike. He said he's gonna send somebody out to situated.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't have for the first one is I think they just want like a generic conference background. You know?
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that?
Like we have this.
Yeah.
With that.
Sure.
Because I think we were supposed to have an image sent to us and to us. I'm not logged into the email. I know we have Mike was.
Yeah. If I could between now, if I can get it quickly, maybe I could.
Yeah. That if we can do that, then, but if we can't, happen. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Secret. I'm afraid on it. She is good.
Die Rasion bounces come.
Hey, actually, I cover this up just so it's nice.
They don't have this.
Yeah.
Nothing else. About. I think they're sprinkler thing. They know it's sprinkler.
Yes, actually, it's been raining all morning. Oh, yeah, that's even close.
Oh, with landmarks, it's difficult to get approval to change things.
They changed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think it's lunchtime.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get much of it.
Yeah. I didn't do breakfast, right? See what they have.
That means.
First, I go up with me very well. People with expectation, I come out, they like to stop. They want.
If you're able to utilize your research,
Water to the big ones. Ready? Alright. Yeah, I don't know if you were in here for the first presentation, but they were that was fun.
So there's people in the waiting room.
Yep.
Sweet.
They're just waiting to be let in. I'm assuming I'll wait till he comes back. I mean, I've got myself a chair right there to wait, so. Yeah. But no, it's pretty good to me. Cool. All right. Yeah. Nice talk, man.
I've never seen it better.
Yeah. Not so say. Yeah.
God. Like the boss of this.
That's the way. Okay. Okay, thank you. Hello. Hey, I know we're eating lunch, but we're gonna have a talk today. How's your conference going? All right, well, thank you all for being here. I hope you're having a good time. We're super excited to have you all here. Hopefully you enjoyed the morning sessions. We're gonna get things kicked off today, talking about where we go next. We all know that times are weird and tough, and the NOFO came out, and we're looking at least 170,000 people losing their permanent homes, on top of SNAP benefits being cut, on top of Medicaid being cut, all these limits to the things that keep us alive every day, when also we're seeing massive amounts of wealth going to a few people, taking it away, taking our wealth away from us, to scuttle it away in some bank or some massive house somewhere. So we wanted to take this opportunity to share with some leaders in our field about what they're thinking about the current times right now, and where we might go next is what we are calling this session. So thanks for listening. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions afterwards. Enjoy your meal, but if you would mind keeping the chit chat low, we would appreciate it. So today with us, we have three esteemed panelists. I'm really excited to have them all here with us. We're very grateful that you all are with us today and are sharing. First, we have Susie Shannon, who is the Director of Housing is a Human Right in LA, and who has worked for a very long time in the field, has lived experience with homelessness. Next, we have Jeff Olivet, who many of you might know from being the former executive director of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, but who has also been in the field for a very long time, really getting started with healthcare for the homeless, and movie. Who's done a lot and is still doing a lot. And we're very grateful for that. I just got rained on. And then finally, last but not least, we have Dr. Lamont Green, who is yes, it was a crowd favorite. Lamont is currently a board member with the National Coalition for the Homeless, has been doing a lot of really great work, and is running the Lived Experience Coalition out of Washington State. Really, really glad to have all of you with us. And I just wanted to start off by asking you each a question, if I could, and then we'll see kind of where the conversation takes us. I think we have a really strong brain trust here, and this will be probably an easy, hard, but we probably have some things to say about it. So I'll just go down the line here. Or actually, I want to start with Jeff. Jeff, the federal policy field is a nightmare right now. And it has been arguably since the dawn, since the beginning of the country. But in particular, our homeless policy, with its challenges, with its ups and downs, with its imperfections, is being completely decimated at this point. I think that's fair to say. And with your experience just recently with the U.S. Interagency Council, how do you see us moving forward with federal housing policy, and what are some highlights and some, maybe, I know that we focus a lot on negatives, but are there positives to look forward to? Sorry, that's just a small question.
I'll try to think of one. Give me a few minutes. It's really nice to be with you all. My soul needed this energy, needed this passion, and I just really appreciate the National Coalition for bringing this group together. I heard how amazing San Jose was last year, and I felt like I had to be part of it this year. So thank you all for including me. I think I'll start, Megan, by talking about what federal policy making should look like, what federal leadership should look like. And I'll acknowledge at the outset that, during my time as a federal bureaucrat, and by the way, Lou reminded me this morning that I'm in recovery from the trauma of being a federal bureaucrat. We did some things well and we didn't do some things well. So I just want to acknowledge that we're not comparing what's happening right now to some perfect ideal that any administration has ever achieved. What we know, though, is that there have been times that the federal government has done real damage to people, and there are times that the federal government has really helped people. And I think we're in one of the most damaging times that we've seen. So I think I'll start by just saying it doesn't have to be that way. I think what federal leadership on homelessness should look like is that it should center the voice of people with lived experience in every decision it makes. And this room is testament to the power of that. We worked at that really hard. We really worked at bringing people with lived experience on staff of the U.S. Interagency Council, as consultants, as youth leaders. We worked with HUD to do all kinds of good capacity building around lived experience leadership. And now we're seeing that decimated, under attack, being rolled back. Another thing that good federal leadership should do is fight like hell for racial justice and do what it can to remedy the sins of the past. And we worked at that too. We weren't perfect, but we did a lot around fair housing enforcement. We did a lot around centering racial equity in our federal strategic plan, in the work that we were doing in expanding Medicaid to millions of people, in expanding the child tax credit, which lifted millions of Black and brown families out of poverty. This administration is outright attacking people of color. It's disappearing undocumented people. It's minimizing the historical experience of Black Americans and Indigenous people. And this is really harmful. When we try to erase our history and when we try to roll back policies that have started to work to reduce racial inequities, then we're going down a bad path that's taking us back 50 years, 60 years, 80 years before the civil rights movement, back to some dark ages of 1850 or something. And that's not what federal leadership looks like. Federal leadership also should emphasize evidence. And this administration seems allergic to evidence, or they don't care. They're rolling back policies like Housing First and like harm reduction that we know save people's lives. We know they end homelessness for people. So what is the vision of this administration? We all saw it coming. Were you surprised? Have you been surprised by anything that the Trump administration has done? He said this is what they were going to do. He said they were going to round people up and put them in internment camps on the edge of town. He said he was going to go after undocumented people. They've been attacking Housing First for years, and now they're in a position to defund it. So we should not be surprised by any of this. But what they're doing is incredibly harmful. Incentivizing states and cities to arrest people for being homeless is morally wrong. It's ineffective. It's bad public policy, but that's the direction they're going. The move towards forced treatment is very troublesome. I had an uncle who spent 30 years in the Alabama State Mental Hospital at Bryce, and we don't want to go back to those days. And that's my fear. Even at the same time that they're talking about expanding involuntary treatment for mental illness, they're also defunding the very mechanism that funds good mental health care, and that's Medicaid. They're rounding up not just undocumented people, but the administration's using federal law enforcement to target people experiencing homelessness in Washington, D.C., where some of us live. There are helicopters flying over our heads at night. There are men with machine guns in our subways, and homeless folks are certainly in the line of fire. You told me to talk about positive stuff. Okay, I'm done. I'm done talking about the negative stuff. In my last job, I had the opportunity to be in a lot of rooms filled with powerful people, rooms with presidents and vice presidents and senators and congresspeople and governors and mayors and all these people who are, in power. And I have never been in a room as powerful as this room is right now. The federal government never really leads. It follows. And it follows where we take it. And we're in a moment that's hard right now. We're swimming upstream. We're paddling against the wind. We're in a tough moment. But in those tough moments, you design what comes next. And if you look at the civil rights movement from 1865 all the way through 1954 and beyond, in those moments when things were the hardest, that's when the work was happening to design the thing that comes next. And what we're doing at the local level, what you all are doing every day in your communities, and what you're doing in this room this week, is you're designing the thing that's going to rise from the ashes. Because this administration will not last forever. Every oppressive regime comes to an end. This one will too. And we decide where we go from here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Pardon me, Susie. I'm going to go to Lamont. Lamont, you have done some contracting work for the government, so you're also very close to how things are changing right now, and especially work around racial justice issues, and kind of like how Jeff was talking about how The current policies are just reversing any kind of small steps we might have made in the right direction. I wonder if you could just share with us, how we envision continuing on our path towards rectifying racial injustice in this current administration. And because I also know that you do a fantastic work with your incredible team in Washington, how do we weave lived experience, or how does lived experience take us forward, if I might?
Wow, that's a lot.
Ah,
Um, no, this year has definitely been really intense. And so not only am I a part of the Washington State Lived Experience Coalition, but I did technical assistance for a long time. You know, the former company, we would receive HUD contracts, and then we help COCs all across the nation. And then on September 3rd, I found out that I was fired. I was terminated. And I was blown away by this. And it really impacted me because of the projects I had brought in and just working really hard and believing in the work. And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, fast forward. But something that didn't sit easy with me, and when we talk about the homelessness system, or some refer to it as the nonprofit homelessness industrial complex, right? And we have all of these agencies and nonprofits that are making money off of our issues, right? And making millions, yes, making millions and millions of dollars. And the thing that hurt the most is where these agencies will come up with racial equity statements, and the hire DEI director and do all these things, right? And you even become close friends, right? And then when the flavor changes, abandon all that. And I was in my feelings, right? It hurt. It hurt because it's like, wow, was this all fake? Really? And you almost like got a little bit of where you feel gaslit and confused and disoriented and doubting yourself and all of that. And so, and it could be how I'm feeling, but I don't want to put too much faith in these systems, right? I think we need to create our own systems, right? Yes. And we need to create our own systems. uh, and so that's a big piece. I just wanted to share that. So in a way, what they say, what the devil meant for evil, God meant for good, because now I'm feeling in a much more liberated place. But the other thing that's been bothering me a lot in the narratives too, right? And our white cousins in the room, our white brothers and sisters and non-gender binary folks in the room, we love y'all, right? But y'all got to get y'all stuff right, right? But sometimes, as race and social justice community organizers, we lump all white people together. And we say, the white folks, the white folks voted for Trump. And I think that narrative is going to be harmful. As community organizers, we need to recognize that white folks, poor and working class white folks, have been flamboozled too, right? That's that divide and conquer strategy. And Josh said it perfectly in the beginning. What did he say? There's way more of us than them, right? But how do we awaken the sleeping giant, right? When you really look at it, poor and working class people of all races, if we were to unify, we could truly create a democracy in a country where everyone can thrive, right? But they got the Black folks hating the undocumented immigrants, got the white folks, poor white folks, hating this group. And, it's just all this culture wars. And it's just keeping us divided and distracted. And we each got our little rut, our silo of work that we're trying to do, right? And it's important work, but we need to unify. We need something really big and something really powerful while we're working at the local level too, right? So if you've been impacted by sexism, raise your hand. Sexism. How about cisgenderism? Raise your hand. Our trans and gender non-binary folks. How about racism? Colonialism? Nationalism, right? How about if all of us came together, even those that are focused on climate change, right? How about if we all came together? Because the force, the oppressor, is the energy and force that's destroying our environment, that's pitting us against each other. And they also need to be saved, right? Greed is a type of insanity. It's like a type of cancer. It wants to destroy everything. And Paulo Freire says it best, right? We're struggling, we're going through a lot, y'all. But we, the people with lived experience, the ones that have been homeless and downtrodden and spat on and at the very bottom in the gutter, we are the power, the only power that's going to liberate both the oppressed and the oppressor, right? And so we need to claim our power. We need to claim our power fully. No more, we're going to speak truth to power with love. We are the power, right? But we got to come together,
Yes.
right? And we all going through our trauma. I think last leadership conference, someone did a poem. It was from the LEC. Keisha wrote a poem. You know, the EBT card. How you get the, she titled "Everybody Traumatized," right? We all traumatized and trying to heal from white supremacy and all these different, whether you're dealing with internalized racial inferiority, internalized racial superiority, or somewhere in between. We all have been sick and programmed and trying to heal, right?
Yeah.
And love liberates. And so we need to be able to bring together our poor and working class white folks in the fold. Say it again? Oh, thank you. So we need to bring our poor and working class white folks, right? And Reed was sharing a story, a very powerful story about the lady, right? Your neighbor who was dealing with cancer, and you were helping to nurture her and get groceries and stuff. Then she put a MAGA sign in her front yard, and you're like, boo, I ain't got time for you no more. But then you reconnected with her, right? And you worked through that. And now she's listening to you and she's coming over to the right side, right? And so it's that type of love that we need to build this fusion movement and to get our brothers and sisters and non-gender binary folks all together. So there's one more thing I wanted to mention too. So my mentor, Mary Flowers at the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, have y'all heard of the People's Institute? They don't play. She told me, she says, a good community organizer is a good manipulator. A good community organizer is a good manipulator. Now, we don't want to do bad manipulation, right? We don't want to use our communication for dark reasons, but a good community organizer is a good manipulator. So then we can ask ourselves, how, first of all, in your community, do you have a lived experience coalition? Raise your hand. If you don't have a lived experience coalition in your community, raise your hand. Okay, so I see some hands up, right? So how can we ensure all of these housing providers, all of these nonprofits that are serving us, that there's a lived experience board, not an advisory board, a board with shared power and shared decision-making, right? Demand that every government program, every nonprofit that serves us, that there are lived experience representatives with power, because that's how we can get in there, how we can design and shift policy. So I'm going to pause there, but thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maman. And I think you fired us up a little bit, but I want to give Susie some time too, because Susie, you've also been doing community organizing for a long time, and have your foot in political spheres, but have also been doing really great work around housing and adaptive reuse. And I wonder if you can just round out this conversation right now, thinking about how we meld all these things together. How do we create that system that's going to work for all of us? What are some steps that you see that are working or that might work to get us to the next step?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank National Coalition for the Homeless and Donald Whitehead and all of the staff and volunteers here for bringing us all together. Really appreciate that. I am formerly homeless. By the time I'm the youngest of 5 to a single mom. By the time I was 5 years old, my entire family was plunged into homelessness. We were on Medicaid. We were on food stamps. And so I take it very personally when we have an administration that will cut off SNAP benefits and say that it's okay for people to starve. That is not okay. That is not our country. And we need to fight really hard, as we know. I started working on policy issues in 2005. I was a drafter of our Housing First legislation in California. And it is very clear to me, having worked as hard as I have on policy issues at a time when we had to meet with interns because they wouldn't even let us meet with staff members, that people with lived experience need to become elected officials. I am so tired of explaining to a new group of legislators every single time what this experience is like, what people are going through, that we're not looking for like a homeless extreme makeover edition. We need housing, right? We need permanent housing. There's nothing wrong with us. There may be something wrong with like CEOs of corporations who steal money, right? But there's nothing wrong with us other than the fact that we need housing. Um, so I want to just point out two pieces of legislation that we're working on now that are bipartisan, that might be something that we could get passed right now. I do want to say that elections matter. So if you are not registered to vote, please get registered to vote before the midterm elections next year, because we're going to need your votes. They are trying to redistrict so that we have no power. And we need to make sure that we're coming out in full force to vote so that we can get some good people elected who actually will listen to us. But I will say, for the two pieces of legislation coming down the pike, one is adaptive reuse. When I was younger, I lived in Chicago. We were homeless in both Chicago and California. But when I was younger, we always had like abandoned buildings in the neighborhood. And I always wondered, like, why do we have abandoned buildings here? And so there is my organization that I work for, Housing as a Human Right, in HF, we actually have converted a lot of these buildings into housing for people who are unhoused and low income. And so one of the pieces of legislation that we're working on that Congressmember Jimmy Gomez is part of as a co-sponsor is to take these buildings, and it's called adaptive reuse, to take existing buildings, the existing infrastructure, and converting that into places where people who are unhoused and are very low income can live. And that is the quickest way, the easiest way, and the less costly way to get people into housing, is to use that as existing infrastructure. Also, we need to build truly affordable housing. I am not talking about housing for people who make $100,000 a year. I think those folks are doing just fine. I'm talking about housing for people who truly need it, who are unhoused. This is like going to the emergency room and someone suffering from a heart attack, and they're taking, the person with a broken finger first. I'm talking about triage. I'm talking about real affordable housing for people who need it. We have like over 75,000 people right now in LA County who are homeless. We have 70,000 vacant units. We have homeless encampments in the shadows of vacant buildings. That is unconscionable. Anyone from another country coming into that city would say, this is outrageous and wrong. And so we need to start demanding that they look at these buildings and they convert them. When I was in Chicago, we always had what was called blight, which was really just abandoned buildings. We have this in Los Angeles. We literally have corporate developers, one in particular that I'm thinking of, who has an empty building with hundreds of units in New York and has an empty building in Los Angeles because it's a line item on a balance sheet that is still, right? It's still going to make money for this developer over time because that property will go up in value over time, but they are sitting on empty pieces of property while folks are homeless in the streets. So this adaptive reuse bill, it actually has a Republican co-sponsor. So we're working on this with National Coalition for the Homeless to try to get that passed. There's also another bill, which is a national infrastructure bank. And that actually would provide a national bank, which would provide a lot of money for affordable housing that would be off budget. So we won't hear any more of this bullshit about how the government's shutting down because we can't come to a budget agreement while people starve and people are worried about their Section 8 housing and people are worried about their public housing. So we need to be off budget on some of these expenses so that we can actually stop all the bullshit that goes on around the shutdown, because rich people are going to do fine during a shutdown, right? No one's losing their food or their housing. No one's losing, or their health care. No one's losing any of that if they're rich. It's people who are low income. And they have showed us time and time again. And I'm a Democrat. I started the Democratic National Committee Poverty Council, but I will say, the work requirements came under the Clinton administration. So that's just for us to say that we need to be ever vigilant, but I think we've reached a point where we're really great, I think, at advocacy. I would like to see more people running for office and getting elected who have lived experience so that we are strategizing with elected officials instead of an endless, cycle of trying to educate them. Thank you.
Thank you. There's more of us than there are of them. That's the point. Yeah. Well, and thank you all. I want to set people up. If you have a burning question, in a minute we'll take that. But there were a few questions on the app ahead of time, and one of the challenges I think that we have across the board in advocacy is that we know the solutions, but we also know that there are people who need help today, who are dying on the streets today, who are sleeping cold tonight, who are hungry today. And we believe that all people deserve their basic human rights to be met, that they have a safe place, that they have a warm place. So, but we're constantly being presented with this dichotomy. You either get shelter or you get housing, but you can't get both. At the same time that we're hearing there's 4 empty units of housing across the country for every person who's experiencing homelessness. And we know that there's these like massive splits, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but what I guess one of the questions, I think that's the question I want to pose to the panel. Just how do you see that dichotomy playing out? How can we address it? How can we take care of people while also addressing those root causes, getting back to the systemic, like changing the system, making sure that it's going to work for all of us? Anyone?
I guess I'll start on this one.
Okay, cool.
So that is total and complete bullshit. Okay. This is like robbing Peter to pay Paul, that whole story. There is enough money to house everyone in this country. It is about priorities. It's about priorities, and we have that money. And I don't believe that any shelter should actually have any kind of system that leads to a revolving door back out into homelessness, right? And I would go further. This may be a little radical for this audience, but if you are taking government money, you don't have a right to refuse people help. You do not get to pick and choose who it is that you help. I had a client who was pregnant, and I had a shelter that turned her away because she was pregnant and she had her baby in a motel room, because we have privatized this industry. Okay, government, when you go to a government agency for food stamps, they don't look at you and go, oh, I don't like you, so you can't have SNAP benefits. They have to give you those benefits. But a shelter It's picking and choosing. They're like creaming off the top or deciding. I had a shelter that had tracked someone for housing from LA County, and they dropped this client, and he had AIDS, and he was living in his car. And they dropped him, and he didn't even know they dropped him. And the case manager would not call me back. How many people here have had case managers? They just don't call you back. I mean, it's ridiculous to leave people in this protracted period of uncertainty. And my client, Kevin, died in his car waiting for housing, not even knowing that his case manager had dropped him. So I have asked time and time again for there to be oversight over nonprofits. We need to stop this system where they can just have people there for 3 months and have, these terrible rules, where you can get kicked out for having like too many hangers at your bed or all these ridiculous things that my clients have gone through. And we need to make sure that we are tracking people for housing, not based on whether your case manager likes you or not, not based on whether or not the nonprofit likes you or not, but true housing, right? To basically say, you are, you are here and you are here until we find you permanent housing. And if you're a nonprofit and you're in this room and you can't do that, I would rather that you just get into another business and let the folks who actually know how to get people into permanent housing do that job, because there are lots of people who can do that job who are not getting the money, and I would rather than they see that money. So don't believe this dichotomy. It has to be shelter or housing. If the shelter doesn't lead to housing, please just step aside and let people who can do it, do it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I hesitate to follow that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Either or thinking is killing us, and it's killing people. You know, when it becomes this simplistic debate of do we need housing or do we need shelter? Yes, right. I mean, of course we need more housing. We've got a deficit of 7 million units in this country. We need more housing, and we need it now. We also know that takes time to build. We could scale up quickly. I love the adaptive reuse work that you guys are doing. We can get more urgent about it. But to get there overnight isn't going to happen. People are dying on the streets, so we need shelter too. Now, we also need to improve the quality of shelter for all the reasons you just talked about. There was a study that the National Alliance did that showed it would take about $9.6 billion a year to house everyone who's in shelter in America right now. $10 billion. That's a lot. It's nowhere near what Elon Musk is making at Tesla, $100 billion a year over 10 years. 1/10 of that dude's income could solve sheltered homelessness in America and open up capacity for more shelter. I believe the federal government could do that too. We had $150 billion on the table in the Build Back Better bill that would have funded housing and exits from homelessness, and it got killed. And it got killed by both Democrats and Republicans.
Yep.
But that would have been transformative. It's not rocket science. We need more money to do the stuff that works. We've also got to pair that with a prevention strategy that stops people from becoming homeless in the first place. And your partners at Destination Home, who are in collaboration with the coalition on this, are doing incredible work on homelessness prevention. The city of Austin is well represented here. These guys are doing great work on prevention. Minnesota, other places. So it's got to be both and. The same is true on mental illness. I mean, there are people who will say homelessness is all about housing. There are other people who will say it's all about mental illness. Of course, we need to deal with the structural causes of homelessness, lack of affordable housing, racial profiling, racial segregation, racial discrimination. And people on the street have a lot of mental illness. Not everybody, but a bunch do, and they're not getting the support they need. So we've got to do housing, and we've got to strengthen our mental health system. We've got to strengthen our access to drug and alcohol treatment for people. For when that window opens and they're ready to go, we need to have a place for them to go. So it's both and. It's not either or, and it's a question of both resources and creativity to get us there.
Thank you. Hold on. Okay. Was there any questions from the audience? You put it in the app? Okay, well, there are a lot of questions in the app. What was your question?
Lou, I quoted you before you came in on that one. Listen, people who are survivors of real trauma in their lives know what trauma is. Serving the public in a federal role is not traumatizing. It's an honor, and it gave me the chance to be in conversation with people all over the country, people with lived experience, direct service providers, and elected officials and others. For me, it was a tremendous honor to serve, and I felt like I was doing everything I could every day to serve people experiencing homelessness. I used to be an outreach worker. I've never been homeless myself, but I've had a lot of close friends who are and who have been. For me, it's all about being in solidarity with each other. It's about people with lived experience of homelessness and people without it coming together. It's about people who are in positions of formal power and people who are in positions of community power and the power of what's happened to you in your life and how you've moved through that coming together. So for me to be an ally to people of color, to queer people, to women, to people who are homeless is part of what I'm trying to do every day when I wake up. And that doesn't have anything to do with title or position. It has to do with who we're trying to be as human beings.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. In the back, speak up and I'll try to repeat. All right. And for those who didn't hear, the question was, what accountability measures can be put in place so that when cities and states, communities are say that they're including people with lived experience, that they're actually staying with it. Did I lost it at the end? They don't act on it. So what's the sorry? What's an accountability measure that can be put in place? Thank you very much for rewording that for me.
Well,
Thoughts?
that's a tough question because a lot of times what I've experienced is where communities like also lived experience is very popular, and like some governments or nonprofits, they'll handpick, a couple of lived experience. They might even have a lived experience advisory board that's funded by government. But when that group becomes too empowered, then they snatch funding away or do other things to disrupt. And so I think, and I don't know if it would be it probably is an accountability measure. Make sure that you get it institutionalized into whatever charter or bylaws or documents, and get a lawyer to review it too. And then I see a lot of communities also developing ombuds programs community ombuds to ensure accountability. But you don't want your ombuds office to be buried within the homelessness system or the homeless authority, right? Because then that doesn't have any accountability. So you want to make sure that you design that correctly. But really where the most accountability happens is when you're building a movement locally in your community of lived experience folks, and you all are in principled accountable relationships. And when elected officials or governments or institutions are not doing what they're supposed to do, you're showing up at public comments, you're showing up at those hearings and developing relationships with elected officials.
Thank you, Lamont. Yes, definitely. And I'm hearing this from all three of you that that we need participation, and that's why we're all here, right? That we really believe that things that they should be different and that they can be different. But we need to keep moving, keep doing the organizing. This is why the sort of sections of the conference that we set up are advocate, empower, but then organize. Like all of these things that we do are slightly different, but they're all very important. And we have to be tying the political participation with your local participation and with your organizing with other advocates like yourself in your communities. It's working together that we're going to get better things in
And,
place.
and I would say, and I don't know, maybe I'm the troublemaker in the room, but if you're part of a nonprofit that isn't listening to you, start your own organization. The federal government will give you a federal ID number. Start your own organization, run for office, use your organization to grow a base to run for office. How about that? Then I don't have to come to you and educate you. We're now strategizing on how we're going to change policy.
Yep, Donald.
We have a lot of questions in the room, so I'm going to take the mic around. But actually what I'll do is go right there. And if people have questions, just line up and we'll let your questions, because there's a lot of you.
Hello, my
15
question
minutes.
is for all of you. I am a lived experience person. I'm on the COC board. I'm also the case study in the Bridges Out of Poverty books. I have been abducted, raped, been in gangs, trap houses, you name it, you got it. But I stand here as a professional, degreed, a homeowner. God is good. My question is, we need the collectivity in order to move the needle. So why we are all here, my question is, have we ever thought about, or could we entertain possibly talking about homelessness and poverty being a violation of our constitutional rights? Again, if we're all in the room from California across to Rhode Island, then I think we should maybe get a petition or do something intentionally so we can be collective to move the needle.
Love it.
Okay with, I guess. My question is, are you guys doing that, advocating that this is a constitutional violation?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do it. There have been resolutions introduced by various members of Congress to in some way address the human rights and the rights that are in the Constitution. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, like we're not, where is our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of justice? You know, like it's not playing out for everybody. Donald.
Can I just say a quick word on the legal front? Because I think your point is a really, really good one about the broad kind of strategy of homelessness as a violation of human rights, civil rights, constitutional rights. You know, the United States has never signed on to the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which talks about housing. That's been around since 1948. We have never, as a nation, said housing is a human right. We've kind of done that with education, with public education. It's been a mess. It's been unequally distributed, but we didn't used to have public school for people. It was all paid. It was all private. We could get there with housing too. So I think there's an argument to be made. I'm going to say a quick word about the Grants Pass case, because I think I don't have a lot of faith in this Supreme Court to get anything right now. I think it's going to be a generational rebuild, but I do think there's an opening for some legal arguments. And those of you who are lawyers in the room, or who have lawyers on your board, or you're connected with legal advocacy groups in your community, I think we need some people pursuing due process arguments and excessive fines arguments around a lot of these criminalization policies that are arresting people without any due process, fining people for money they don't have. I think there's some stuff in the Constitution that could be explored on that. So that's not quite as big picture as what you're talking about, but I think it needs to be done.
I'll just shout out to really quickly in the homeless union presentation, just the session before this one. They have some ways, some methods, some strategies for responding to legal challenges. So if you didn't get that, go to that session, look it up after the conference.
And I would also,
Yeah. And I would just say housing is a right, food is a right, healthcare is a right, just as much as it is a right to defend ourselves as a country. So take it from the trillions of dollars that we put into defense to feed people, make sure they're housed, and to make sure that they have healthcare.
and I would also say that there is a lot of legal work going on around the country. What the homeless union did is they attacked it on the 14th Amendment, and they won. And so that is going to be happening more and more across the country. But we're also working on vulnerable victims legislation in California with Brian Levin, who does a lot of work around anti-Semitism. We have a conference on that next week to talk about using that as a way to get the rights of people experiencing homelessness protected. Just want to say that.
Yes, I'm Fred Bergeron. I'm a veteran, and you guys mentioned affordable housing earlier. I don't know if that's home ownership or on the rental side, but on the rental side, something I've noticed is, at least where I live in Florida, if you want any type of rental assistance, whether you're a veteran or a non-veteran, you literally have to have an eviction notice in order to get help. What can we do about that? Because most people aren't going to wait till they get an eviction notice to get help.
I mean, I just think that's wrong. I mean, I've actually helped people who couldn't pay the rent and they didn't have an eviction letter, so they just couldn't go to legal aid. I think that's ridiculous. I think anybody who is in a place where they can't pay their rent, and rents are way too high across the entire country, that I think that's wrong. And I think we need to, I mean, look, they all do fundraisers and they all get money from the government. So, you know, you need to basically appeal to legal aid and some of those legal aid organizations in your area to get them to help people sooner. You know, we don't need people out on the street to get help with their rent. We need people to be helped with their rent when they can't pay the rent when the first comes along.
Mhm.
I mentioned earlier the work at Destination Home in Santa Clara County, and I know Claudine is here from Destination Home. They don't require an eviction notice to do prevention work. That you can be on a non-traditional lease, you can be doubled up. If you need help to stay housed, they do it. I think Los Angeles, with some of the work they're doing with the homeless prevention unit, is doing a little bit of that, where it's not like the eviction prevention thing where you have to have a notice. So I think there's some interesting work going on, but it's not scaled up in every community.
Hi there. My name is Belinda. I'm from Oregon. Anybody else? Oregon?
Oh,
Woo!
woo.
Anyway, I want to ask you, what kind of accountability measures that could come that you would think of or other people have thought of, but to make them structuralized in shelters to make spaces safe. And what I mean by that is having like a space for transgender, having a space for people that are medical that probably may need, 12 hours of sleep due to if they just got out of surgery or whatnot, having a place for, people of color, having a place for queer, like having spaces within the shelter so that people can feel safe on that note. And also like how to really, if there is any harm, when there is harm done within the shelter, like as far as like those measures being taken, is that something that the individuals that are in the shelter would be able to see so that they could see that, okay, there was an outcome for this and there was a solution and I am being heard for what happened. And in Portland right now, we are working like on accountability measures and what we want to see in shelters. And this is something that came up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. Go ahead, Lamont. Yeah.
I think that's a really good question. And I've seen some examples where they embed the accountability measures in the contract, say if they're funded by the county or city, that you all as lived experience advocates could work with their funder to make sure that it's embedded in the contract and monitored on. And then some communities that have ombuds programs are some type of formal grievance where it's posted in the shelter, where they can contact that grievance and have accountability there too. Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing from the panel is sometimes we just have to do things. I think if we wait for the system to tell us what we are hoping to hear, we won't hear it. That's part of it. I mean, I know that's not a total answer, but that's why we're here, is we're all together in this and we will support each other through it. But yeah, thanks.
And I also think it's the downside of the fact that like almost every state and local government has privatized homeless services to nonprofits and then had no accountability for those nonprofits.
Yep.
And they can kind of do whatever they want and deny services, and no one is doing anything. I mean, I called for this back in 2005 for them to do that. Then in 2014, the LA Weekly in Los Angeles on April 17th, which was my birthday, so I remember that, did a whole expose on shelters, and the city did absolutely nothing. So yeah, we need to demand it, because public money is going to these nonprofits as grants, and then they do nothing.
And I will say, I'm not going to answer every question too, but I will say there is a project that's happening at the national level called the Reimagining Shelter Project. There's a workshop tomorrow, and that project is designed to implement shelter provisions within the shelters. So to make sure there's a standard in shelters across the country and people are doing housing that is non-congregate versus congregate. That workshop is tomorrow. Please work with them so we can create national shelter standards.
Thank you, Donald. My name is it on? Yeah, my name is Wendell Williams, and I started with Donald when he was driving a Nissan Sentra right here in Cincinnati at the Greater Cincinnati Coalition for the Homeless in the early 90s. And I still work boots on the ground. Donald gave me my first job in this battle, and he gave me my last official job in this battle, working for Prince George's County, a suburban Washington, D.C. county. So Donald and I have been in this a long time, just on different routes, trying to accomplish the same thing. We disagree on a whole lot, but one thing we agree on is something must be done. While I've chosen to stay boots on the ground, we need Donald doing the work he's doing. I've heard a lot today in the last 2 days, and I disagree with most of it. But one of the things that I've not heard that needs to be said, and I'm going to say it, is regardless of what the government does or does not do, regardless of what the homeless industrial complex does or does not do, and I do believe it exists because I've seen it over all these years since 1991, for those who believe in the Judeo-Christian way of living, there's a gospel, it's Matthew 21, verse 34. Commands all of us as individuals to do something. So when I walked away from Prince George's County, I decided I'm going to do something on my own and not be encumbered by the layers of bureaucracy, by funding, by jumping through hoops to get another grant for another year. So I partnered with a bunch of, and listen to this, retired police officers from my county. Black men. We have an outreach program where we work all night doing outreach at nights. And they're not scared to go in any place where families and individuals may be living at night. And we have another group of them that during the day feed, clothe, and do whatever is necessary to keep people who are suffering as comfortable as we can. And we don't ask for a dime from anybody in the establishment. Has anybody seen Showtime and know who Ray Donovan is? That's what I do. I shake down liquor stores, immigrant-owned businesses who don't want to be a part of the community for cash. I do not give receipts for tax deductions or anything. I get money and we do changes on the street. I was able to vaccinate 250 homeless people living in encampments during the height of COVID by paying them $25 each time they took a shot. I think this is the kind of out of the box kind of things that people in the room with lived experience must do to make a change while you're waiting for the apparatus to move fast enough, and it never will. The question I have is, how can you continue to believe in a system that unless you have money will never work for you? And how do we raise collectively enough money to buy some people so they'll work for us?
Um,
Okay, unfortunately, we're getting really close to the end of our time. I hope the panel may answer that question, but I'm not going to be able to get to everybody. I think we have maybe one or two more questions and we'll wrap up. So please.
Hi, my name is Robbie from San Jose, California. What they need to do, the governor and the mayor need to step down and help the homeless and kick down some money. What they need to do, they give them a piece of property and build a bathroom for them and give them some help. What they need to do.
can you, sorry, I didn't catch everything. Got to keep them.
I say the
running close to
governor,
mouth.
the
Thank you.
governor and the mayor need to kick down to help the homeless instead of throw them out, but getting them a piece of property with a bathroom and a shower.
Mhm.
You know, and give them a chance to get a job.
Yeah.
Give them a hand.
Yeah.
You know? And people lost. I see people lost. I seen 3 people lost their homes. They had nothing
Yeah.
but tents. Now they got nothing now.
How do we get more to people who are outdoors who have lost everything? Bathrooms. Wait.
Okay,
Yep. We get
one
the
last
mayor, get
question.
The governor, everybody should be coming down to see what's going on. That's right.
All right, one last question, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm from Maryland. I'm a person with lived experience, and to piggyback off of what you said, I didn't catch your name.
Susie.
Given the fact that our COCs are not compliant with their own written standards,
Yep.
they're not compliant with HUD regulations,
Right.
they're not compliant with their consolidated applications, and so they are defying the law. Under the Consumer Protection Act, that's illegal. And so the COCs can be sued under the Consumer Protection Act, but Legal Aid is a nonprofit and does not have the manpower in the state of Maryland, at least, to sue the Balance Estate COCs. To piggyback on what she said, we need some collective action here. And how can we file some class action lawsuits to hold the COCs accountable for following the laws that they're supposed to follow?
Is it? Yeah. Do we, does the panelist have an answer for that? That was an answer. Yeah, the legal. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We are at time. We know that we have lots more to talk about, lots more to discuss. We have another full day, the rest of today and all of tomorrow. What? I can't. Got it. Okay, a few announcements. Thank you all. I hope you enjoy your lunch. We have the rest of today. Tonight, after dinner, is an open mic. Tyler, our gorgeous membership coordinator, who is also in the screening room in Salon HI, will be running the open mic. So if you want to sing, you want to share poetry, anything that you want to do, if you just want to get up on stage and tell your story, that we will welcome anything. Please see Tyler, and we'll be here after dinner. Dinner again will be tonight in the Hall of Mirrors, but and that's where the open mic is going to be as well. So all the evening things are there. We also have a few things for sale. We're a nonprofit. We have fundraised a lot for this event, but we can always use more if you have something to share. We have our You Don't Need Homelessness Isn't a Crime t-shirts, as well as our magazine that are both available for purchase at the registration desk if you'd like those. And we also have some paintings. In the late 90s, there's a painter, she's still alive, she's amazing. She does oil paintings, who painted a series of portraits of people who either she knew or had gotten introduced to, who were experiencing homelessness. They're a powerful series. We just brought some of the smaller ones with us, but those are up for purchase, and we're just taking offers. She wants us to be able to fundraise off of those, and she just wants to get them into people's homes. They're really beautiful paintings, again, original oil paintings, and they're also in the registration desk. Thank you guys. I think that's all my announcements. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you especially to our amazing panelists. Do we end the meeting? We have a meeting.